what if the very instinct that saved your life as a child, shutting down, hiding pain, or kind of like armoring up, is now the reason you feel so isolated? This is a cruel irony of emotional walls. We create them to survive, but they ultimately bury us alive. Here's the truth: your nervous system won't tell you. That icy silence, that rage that feels bottomless, the suffocating fear of being too much, they're not character flaws. They're ancient survival codes misfiring in a modern world. Codes that mistake therapists for tigers and partners for predators and love for a threat. For decades, we've treated connection like a self help puzzle by assuming the answer to all relationship concerns is communicating better. But what if the answer lies not in your words, but your biology? In the breath your ancestors relied on to survive families, in the silent language of touch that existed before speech. Today, we're unlocking the vault, the three-word phrase used by hostage negotiators to melt defensiveness faster than I love you, the forensic tool borrowed from aviation disasters, investigators that map resentment like a crime scene, and the prehistoric rituals still practiced by indigenous healers to convert screaming matches into sacred ground. This isn't about fixing you. This is about rewiring the promised software that governs your relationships. The tools you'll acquire today, well, they've built, they've rebuilt trust in special forces, revived collapsed marriages, and turned fathers who hadn't spoken in decades into allies. So if you're with us during this live recording or watching the replay, which many of you are going to want to do anyway, you may want to make sure that you're here throughout the entirety of this conversation, because right now we're going to rewire the code and break down walls. Now, gentlemen, as we get started, and again, I'm going to reiterate, if you have not hit that like button yet, make sure that you do so. Gentlemen, as we get started, of course, we always got to start off with a leading question. But before we do, I want to make sure that everybody understands that here on this network, the Empowerment Perspective Network, we believe that everybody is a subject matter expert of their own perspective. That does not necessarily make it true or false, right or wrong. It is what it is. And I think we do well just accepting it for what it is, because that's their point of view of reality. So the first thing I want to put out there as a question, and I think it's really interesting, and as we get into it, like, if you consider, what if the walls surrounding your heart were not built by choice, but rather by 50,000 years worth of survival software operating on autopilot in your nervous system? How can the silent language of breath, touch, and shared presence, tools our ancestors employed to survive extinction, assist us in dismantling modern emotional barriers and reclaiming deep connection?
I think it allows us to get in touch with the humanism of a person. It allows us to see through what we think and what their actions may be, to dig deeper, because there's a reason behind the reclusiveness. There's a reason behind the being offish. It's, certain things are learned behaviors over time. And if you just take it, oh, that's just how they are, instead of that's what they've learned to become, then if you just take that, you'll dismiss the person and what they won't necessarily see what they need. But if you look at it and look at each person differently and learn their behaviors, you'll say, okay, I understand this person a little better, and that allow you to communicate them on a deeper level.
Anybody else?
I was hoping on jumped in there, because I'm resting on this one. But as I'm reading it, the one thing that comes to my mind is, because it says, how can it help us dismantle modern emotional barriers and reclaim deep connections? I think it's knowing how to speak the silent languages. I think too often we're ready to argue, and we're ready to prove our point. We're ready to be right. And so I think just knowing the language, right, of breath, touch, shared presence, as you put it, that speaks in and of itself. And sometimes being silent in and of itself speaks volume in the situation. Learning how to be the calm in a storm and not being fuel to fire. So just mastering or understanding the language, the silent languages itself, I think that alone can help us.
I want to say that I think this is something that we talk about on this show. But I think it's been put in a different way, and I like it, because when we're talking about, and this is me kind of breaking it down, when we're talking about breathing, we're talking about, and then I'm looking at the show title and talking about emotional barrier. So when it comes to like our emotions, our breathing is very important in regulating our emotions, right? So if something is going on now, if even back then, if we're scared, if we're fearful of something right now, our breath and how we control our breath in that moment is very important. Another emotional thing, we look at touch, we look at embracing somebody who may be going through something, a handshake, in that, during that conversation, giving somebody a hug, blah blah blah, just different things. And then I'm looking at the shared presence. If somebody's going through something, if I'm having a conversation with coach, and is coach on his phone texting, or is he being present in the moment? So I'm looking at all three of these things as also ways that we used to survive back in the day. It's like, we had to be in the moment. You couldn't be, you had to listen and pay attention to your surroundings, because you had to be on high alert at all times. So you had to be in the moment. You couldn't be over there playing around and picking your toenails and different things like that out in the middle of out in the middle of the whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a certain point in, if we're out there and we're trying to hunt or whatever like that, all of these emotionals and all of these different things need to be kind of locked in order for us to be able to do whatever we need to do back then. And I think now too. And I think all of those things together will help us reclaim deeper connections when in the moment, me and someone is having a conversation, and I can control my breath even when it gets emotional. I can touch and all the other things I said too. I just think all of those things combined together can help us just reclaim deeper emotions in general.
Okay, I like those responses. So let me kind of back up, because I kind of want to touch on each one of these individuals. Roland, you mentioned, it allows us to connect with the human. So for the person in the back who heard that and be like, well, hold on, I'm a human too, right? If I'm in my feelings, or I'm on the other side and I'm hearing a person in their feelings, are you saying that one of us are not displaying our humanistic traits? Just kind of want you to define that a little bit more.
I think what we're doing is, it's like everybody's been in some type form of relationship here. And sometimes you could hear a sigh. And you look over like, okay, something going on. I don't necessarily know what's going on. And most time I really don't care. I just want you to stop doing it. But then if we were to listen to it, knowing that now I'm thinking something is bothering this person. So now I don't look at them as somebody that's just irritating my space. I look at it and say, okay, this person is going through something that they're trying to express to me in a way that they don't even know they're trying to express it. But how can I get in touch with them now, knowing that they're going through something, and make them feel comfortable enough to open up about what they're going through?
Okay, gotcha. Gaddy, you talked about knowing how to speak the language. I think that was a very important piece, because I think a lot of us, we'll say certain things, like we don't have, a lot of us don't have the tools to do certain things. So if I don't have the tools, and I was never taught the tools growing up, but yet I'm still tying myself to people, relationships, things of that nature. How do I get to the point of learning this language that you speak of?
Man, to be honest with you, I think these are one of those things that you learn or you didn't learn because you saw it displayed by the elders. And I think one of the hard parts about relationships in 2025 is that we have a bunch of old people, but we ain't got no more elders. And that changes the game for how young people grow, how they learn and how they grow. They have no respect for people's wisdom that's been here longer, because the old folks are trying to act young. I tell people all the time, there's nothing more frustrating to me than I hearing somebody 40 years old talking about period. Sit down. Like, or you ain't pressure. You 50. You ain't pressure. Your blood pressure was pressure. But we're trying too much to, and I know we try to say we want to relate, but there's a difference between our elders and our youth for a reason. And if we look too much like them, then there's no respect there, which means there's no room for them to learn. And so I think these are the things that we should have learned from our elders. Now, as we're picking up some of these tools, hopefully we find some elders and we take them on as mentors, right? And we sit under them, we listen to them, we watch them, we pay attention to how they move, and we'll see that. You see that old lady that been married to her husband for 50, 60 years. A lot of times she understands that if she speaks up, she's going to create more chaos in in the situation. So she sits quiet, right? And that we used to look at Big Mama and say she had grace about her. She carried herself with a level of grace because she didn't argue all the time. Now she got us right. She snatched us up. She made us go grab, I ain't grabbed too many switches. And I ain't had too, never mind. But I was, we ain't had too many switches up north. But still, we got put together by our elders. But the times are changing. I think we just have to find those mentors and glean from them.
Okay. First of all, everybody who's 50 ain't got high blood pressure. I'm just gonna put that out there. But there would be some that say that we are the elders for the most part, because a lot of the previous generation, they're coming to the end of their lifespan. They don't necessarily have the. I don't want to say they don't. Some don't necessarily have the patience. They're not necessarily, for the most part, they're not. Some of them are not necessarily in the mode of teaching right now. So, could that which you say actually apply to us?
Absolutely. And I'll say for anybody that's in our age range, if you're gonna grab the mantle, grab it and honor it properly.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is not disregarding any of our, the older generation who is still with us. We greatly appreciate their words and we greatly appreciate their wisdom, and I'm definitely not disregarding your presence. But I think for the most part, we end up being that teaching that language per se. Unc, you mentioned what I would call the mechanics, right? You went into taking that breath so that you can regulate your emotions. The kind of what I tend to call the behind the scenes work when it comes down to personal touch, and just being present and listening attentively and things of that nature. Is it because these are the things that we're talking about teaching, what Gaddy was just talking about, right? Is it possible that in the midst of doing that, like we get to the point of having the desire to do that, but not necessarily having the patience to do it, and then losing the patience within that particular moment, and say that person kept knocking and kept chipping away at it, and then we respond openly and honestly to that person? Like, what would be your response to that? I got stuck for a second. I'm sorry.
I think that is I definitely think that that's possible, but I think that there is a point to where you can grow, or that you can be, regardless of whatever's going on around you, you're not rattled by it. You know what I mean? So even though someone may get feisty with me, I can still remain calm. They can get feisty. I can remain calm. They can get feisty. I still have overall choice over how I respond to their feistiness. You know what I mean? It's still ultimately on me. I understand that it is not always easy, and I understand that one and or the other may or may not be primal. I think that some of these things are situational and depending on where we at, you know. So if we're in the forest, I think maybe these things may be a little bit more important versus if we're back at camp, you know what I mean, where you can be a lot more free and you can maybe get aggressive, just kind of like in the military. You know, we talk about, you know, when we was the NCOs and stuff like this, it's like I need soldiers I need to lead them in a way that when I say go, we just go. There's no questions asked, because sometimes I may have to make a decision that may save your life, and I don't need you questioning my leadership. So I think that we all may have the tendency, and it may be primal, I don't know, to want to go back and forth, because I think sometimes it may be a protection mechanism at the same time. But I do think that sometimes we grow to a level to where we understand if we're really in a moment of fear or not. And I think that once you get to a level of maturity, you're like, this not a fear moment for me, so I don't need to react out of fear, you know. So that's just my kind of 2 cents on it.
Okay. I greatly appreciate that. Anybody have anything else they want to add to this piece here?
I think I like where we're going, but I think that sometimes we get lazy and we try to put everyone in the same mold. So how I am with Coach, I think Ump got to be that way, and Gaddy got to be that way. And if they're not receptive to it, then we take offense. So sometimes it's us and our unwillingness to grow and learn each individual for who they are.
That's a good point. I like that. I like that. Listen, again, as always, welcome to the show. Good to see you, Miss Verlene McCoy. Good to see you, Miss Nodella Sakajuia. Jordan, welcome to the show. And anybody else who's showing up. I put in the chat earlier, I gave you guys a link to go take a look at. It's like 1 minute and 30 seconds. 1 minute and 45 seconds. Only watch the first minute and 45 seconds because we're going to talk about it here in a second. But before we get there, we want to start tackling this interesting conversation. And so we're going to start off with the emotional walls are our biological firewalls. And I think when we think about it from that perspective, it makes a whole lot of sense. So as I kind of go over this real quick, I want to show everybody something. And as you guys take a look at that, I want you to kind of let that seep in, because I want to introduce to you what is called dorsal vagal shutdown. Dorsal vagal shutdown is a state of extreme stress and paralysis where the body shuts down its physiological and psychological responses to threats. It is like a protective mechanism that occurs when the body feels overwhelmed and unable to cope. It is linked to the automatic nervous system, specifically a component of the parasympathetic rest and digest branch. And what happens during the dorsal vagal shutdown, let's just say you have like a triggering response. And it is activated in response to overwhelming or inescapable stress, whether it is real or perceived. And that is one of the key points, real or perceived. The brain interprets threats as life-threatening, and you can find this can kind of show itself as emotional abandonment, trauma, or situations where fight or flight is impossible. And the response is that the dorsal vagal nerve, the oldest part of the ANS, or as I said previously, the automatic nervous system, it initiates immobilization. So heart rate slows down. Emotionally, you become disassociated, numb, and check out. And behaviorally, you withdraw, you go into silence or collapse, or what we tend to call freeze. This is the body's last-ditch effort to conserve energy when survival feels hopeless. And so I think it's important because when we start looking at certain things, these things kind of manifest itself in this manner. And it can happen like considering a man shuts down during an argument with his partner. His dorsal vagal system perceives emotional vulnerability as a threat, triggering shutdown to protect him from perceived harm or rejection. And the partner misinterprets this as indifference, escalating the conflict. And so, as you're looking at this, we are talking about, and I know you guys can't see my cursor, but we're talking about the upper portion of this chart, right? It is the parasympathetic nervous system. And right up under it, you see brake system, dorsal vagal complex, which can perceive itself as high tone. So, that all of that being said, like, how does recognizing emotional withdrawal as a primal survival reflex shift societal perceptions of stonewalling from stubbornness to a physiological necessity? How does recognizing emotional withdrawal as a primal survival reflex shift societal perceptions of stonewalling from stubbornness to a physiological necessity? Come on, man. Stop playing.
I think if you recognize, how does recognize it? We can read it. I think when we're looking at if someone is in that higher plane and you recognize that if you have a relationship with someone, you should see a switch. You should see a difference in how they are. And it's not a nervousness, it's not a nervous twitch, anything, but it's this person just shut down because, I think you got to read, you know how they say, read the room. And when you read the room, you say, okay, this person is in a place where they aren't feeling too secure, where they are feeling some source of danger in the area. So they shutting it down. I know people who argue, and when they get to a certain point, when they want to put hands on people, they shut down. They get loud, then they shut it down. And it's like, okay, let me stop before this goes somewhere I ain't trying to go. And I think, how does it, recognizing it as a reflex, it allows you to know the person's limits. It allows you to know that, hey, I can only push so far right now with this person because they're dealing with something that I'm not privy to.
Let me say it like this, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. How does understanding everything that was just said, how does understanding that not allow me to look at a person as just simply being stubborn, but look at that person as they're responding from a physiological standpoint as they're trying to protect themselves? Because, I mean, think about it. When we were younger, nobody ever talked to us about anything like this. We never know that I'm sitting here trying to have a conversation with my wife and she just stopped talking in the middle of the conversation. I didn't know she was protecting herself, right? So how does that allow me to change my perspective to like her being stubborn to like she is going into self-protective mode?
I got it. You want me to jump on it? All right. I think how it changes things, it can potentially maybe adjust how you approach or handle the situation now that I know that maybe this person shuts down out of a primal defense. And even like what Roland said, like I get all of that. Like, because when Coach was saying everything before this, that's exactly where I was going, and how is sometimes people shut down not because they're stonewalling or anything like that. It's because, look, I've gotten to a certain level. This conversation is going to go too far, and now I want to put hands on you. So now, if that person, I'm just going to say me, if that person can recognize that this is a defense to keep me from jumping on you, then maybe you will not necessarily be as aggressive towards me. Maybe you won't continue to raise your voice. Maybe you won't necessarily put yourself in harm's way. So that's kind of where I want to go with it right now. I just think it allows us to be able to better communicate and allow us to be able to better handle and assess the situation if we understand why someone is doing something. versus the stonewalling may be an assumption or perception?
Well, assumptions are generally rooted in facts, so that's still not wrong. What you got, Gator?
So when I hear primal survival reflex, I hear automatic response, but it sounds more generic, right? Because I think it's primal. Yeah, but I think it's built off of whatever the experiences are, the traumas are, or what have you. May not, I know we don't like using that word all to everything, but I think it's the hard part about it is being willing to be transparent about certain things so that under and I know it sounds like I'm going in a circle because I'm thinking about it. Maybe it's the way my mind works, but I'm thinking of it in the aspect of how am I supposed to know that this is a survival reflex if you're not open with me? Because we said you mentioned your wife. Hopefully, my wife is open with me about the traumas that that she have had or has that she's dealing with, right? So that I can be that support system in this relationship with her through these things. Hopefully she's working through them or have worked on them, right? But that first would allow me to understand that she's in survival mode, that is physiological response to whatever the conversation is or whatever the scenario is. But and I don't want to deviate from the question because it's how can it shift our perception? But to me, it's just understanding, right? You got to be open. You got to be transparent to the people that you're in that type of relationship with. And on the other side, we have to be understanding as to why they go to stonewalling. What are they protecting? Why are they protecting themselves? And then so the question then is, how do we move forward if you continue to stay in stonewalling? And I don't want to jump ahead, but but this is a thing we have to work through. So it all comes to me. The how is just understanding, but now understanding turns into support. Now, how do we move forward? How do we get past this? Because now our relationship has to grow. So many other things come into play here. So it ain't much left to say because these brothers really hit it. I agree with everything Unc and Ro put out, but yeah, let's be open and transparent in these relationships as they get serious, so that this way, when you stonewall your significant other's not looking at you like, oh, you just don't want to talk. Oh, you just want it your way, so you're not going to respond. They understand that you're shutting down as a defense. And now it causes me to reevaluate the conversation and how I'm coming at you.
Yeah. So, and I understand how the question is written. And so the assumption behind the question is that we're talking about the other partner that's not stonewalling, that wants to engage in the conversation. But what is the responsibility of the person who is actually stonewalling?
To work through it, whatever that looks like, whether it's counseling or, but
I think first they got to identify what they're
saying. Yeah,
because sometimes it's what they know to do. So I think, and though therapy is necessary, period. But I think that when a person, if you always got to go there, if it always comes to this point, oh, when you do this, I'm going to respond like that. If you know you're going to respond like that, that means you can identify that there's a problem and you can identify the trigger that leads to the problem. So now you have a responsibility to say, hey, I got to do some work on my triggers, because ain't nobody walking around you on eggshells.
Yeah, I think both. Yeah, I think the person has to, I think you can't use it as a manipulation tool, right? I think that there's something that you have to communicate. And you have to say, hey, look, you know what, I'm the type of person, you know, how some people say, hey, I'm the type of person that, you know, I just need my 3 or 5 days and I need to be by myself. Well, if that is beneficial and y'all have worked through that and that worked for y'all relationship, then by all means, keep doing it. However come, I don't think that that's pretty effective for most long-lasting relationships. But again, I don't know. But I do believe that there are always some outliers out there. But I think that, you know, you have to communicate and say, hey, look, you know, this is how I am. This is something that I am working through, you know, and then over time, you know, the other person needs to be able to see the progress. You know, I don't know exactly how long that progress is going to take, but there should be some growth over time to the point to whereas you should be able to have a conversation about something to where we have grown together, to where we have effective communication with each other, to whereas we can bring and have conversations and talk through things to whereas to the point to where we eventually get rid of the stonewalling out of our relationship. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, and that's why I asked that question, because it's this question, although it is a complete question, can be misleading. And so I don't want anybody to walk away from the table assuming that when you're dealing with something, it's your partner's responsibility to wait it out. No,
Mm.
it's a joint responsibility. And at the end of the day, me identifying, probably one of the first identifying metrics is somebody telling me that's what I'm doing. If
Mhm.
someone tells me that that's what I'm doing, that is called identification within itself. And I think when we automatically push all the onus on one person and say it's your responsibility to be patient with me and allow me to work things out, that's not necessarily being honest. That's not necessarily being forthcoming for a healthy relationship. You have now placed that person at your beck and call, and at the end of the day, you get to stay in your slump for as long as you want to, and they're waiting on you to get ready to talk again. So I want to make sure that we're looking at it from both perspectives. If a person tends to go into what we call stonewalling in a difficult conversation, well, that is a technique, right? That, you know, people who can't have difficult conversations, that's kind of like what they do, and it's happening internal with them. Recognizing it is important, but staying there is not important. And again, if we can talk through it and help that person get out of it, sure, but it's still that person's responsibility to get out of it. So I want to make sure I'm saying that as well.
And
You
there's a
said
third.
that happens. You said that happens internally. Why? Why do people do that? Why do people have a hard time having difficult conversations? Like it's just conversations. Like no one's gonna get punched in the nose. No one's gonna get sent to the room. No one's gonna like not eat dinner. Like we're all grown folks. You know what I mean? But why is it so difficult for adults, even in relationships, to have difficult conversations to the point to where it's like people want to stonewall? Like, why is it hard to be on the receiving end of that difficult conversation?
Well, I think we just talked about it, really, right? They don't have the tools. They've never seen it growing up. All of those things can be it. They don't understand the techniques when it comes down to having difficult conversation. Some people just don't like being told that they did something in error. So all of those things fit in. Maybe, you know, when they was growing up, big, you know, Papa never told them that, you know, they did something wrong. You know, that's daddy's little princess. That's my little king right there. Don't be talking my little king like that. He's a king, you know, stuff like that. And so when you live a shielded and sheltered life, right, that's what ends up happening. That same behavior becomes manifest in that person as an adult. So now when they go out and seek interpersonal relationships, what ends up happening when the first time somebody tells them that I don't like this is what you're doing, and that's not welcome in my space because I have boundaries. I know how to actually set boundaries. I know how to reinforce boundaries, things of that nature. And they're like, I'm not familiar with that. My daddy or my mom ain't never did that to me. So all of those things can be true in the space of that person. Why I stay there? I don't know. I don't know why I stay there. But you know, sometimes people get comfortable and they look for people who they can do that to.
Some of it fear, you think too?
Sure.
Yeah.
And some of it may be they truly don't know how. They know that it is, and they know like, man, I'm acting just like my mom. I'm acting just like my father. But they don't want to act like that. But they don't know how not to act like that because they haven't been given the tools to remove those behaviors.
Yeah. So as we kind of press forward into the next part, for everybody who watched that video clip, put a 1 in the chat. I want to see how many people was able to watch that video clip, because it's gonna prove itself to be vital here in a minute. So if you watch the video clip that I put in the chat in the beginning, put a 1 in the chat. That way I know of the people who are able to do it. I'll still talk it through, but that's fine. Next is what we call the 3-word code breaker. And the 3-word code breaker is pretty simple. It's one we use all the time in the coaching arena. So the 3-word code breaker is, in essence, I'm alongside you. Okay. Why does the phrase "I'm alongside you" effectively neutralize defensiveness more than traditional apologies, and how does it change power dynamics in conversations? Again, why does the phrase "I'm alongside you" effectively neutralize defensiveness more than traditional apologies, and how does it change power dynamics in conversation?
I'll go first. I think kind of just does it. Kind of neutralizes the playing field. You know what I mean? It kind of just evens things out. Like now we are like partners now. Like so it kind of it's coming at it from a different angle, more of a partnership angle. So when you have a partner, you're more likely or generally you're more likely to work together versus work against each other. So when you approach it as a partnership, I think you can then start working together to both try to get to the issue versus just, like you said, in traditional apology. And then like I said, when it comes to changing the power dynamics, when you're a partner and when you come in it from that way, there's nobody above each other. They're on equal playing field. So that's where I start with.
X.
Yeah, I got you. I think that it along with Unc's partner reference, I think it allows me to see the person, or the person to see me as somebody willing to share the load. So I can stop looking at the load. I'm like, okay, if this person's actions line up with his or her words, now I'm looking at them as being someone in it with me. Like I'm not in it by myself. So now there's a dependency that comes along with that, where I can depend on you to help me through this thing.
Yeah, I'm alongside with everybody in this one. See how I neutralize y'all. I'm joking. But but seriously, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Was alongside you tells you that I'm walking with you, not against you. And I think so often we view other people as not walking with us, but just walking the same direction as us. And so it's like we're both going this way, so let's go this way. But no, I'm actually here walking with you. I'm your friend, I'm your partner, I'm your ally. Because the defenses are normally put up. If I'm putting up a defense, that means I'm trying to keep out something. I'm trying to keep away something specific. And so once I've realized that you're not here to harm me, then the defenses can go down, because I know that I'm not at war with you in my presence. I'm in harmony. And so the apologies doesn't necessarily say I'm your ally. It just says, hey, I didn't mean to harm you. But it doesn't necessarily say, hey, I'm here fighting with you. I'm here on your side. I got your back. It just says, my bad. Right. And which is okay if we're just trying to, stay cordial, but it's definitely, when you got a defense up, you really need to know that that person is fighting with you and not against you.
Yeah. Let's be transparent. Most apologies aren't really apologies. You know what I'm saying? Most people don't know how to apologize. They were just like just saying a thing just to get past this particular moment. So in all actuality, it becomes a thing of repetition and not in a thing of acknowledgement when it comes down to what is actually happening in real time. I like what everybody said here. I also like what they're saying in the chat as well. Working together, I think there's a sense of oneness. Um, let me see. It fosters a sense of support. And so when you look at these things, like I think that's kind of like what it is. Like when you kind of like agree to walk alongside a person, I think it shows. And again, it is two part. It's not me just throwing myself out there at the mercy of your stonewallness. Right? It's a thing to where you're open to it as well. So stonewalling doesn't necessarily show me, um, you know, that you're open to that. So it's a two-part responsibility. And once that presents itself, it does kind of bring you get together as a team to where just an apology is like we're still in opposition. And I think that's one of the things that we do a lot in relationships when things don't go our way or we feel that we're having a differences of opinion or whatever that look like. It's almost like a competitive nature that exists between two people as opposed to a partnership. And so when you get on board with I'm alongside you, that kind of brings you back on the same side of the playing field to where we're working together moving forward. Roland, you look like you had something you want to add.
Yeah, because you had mentioned about the apology, and I think I'm agreeing with you. And I think that the apology just acknowledges that I have a part in this. But when you do this, it says I have a part in it with you. Both of us have a part. Let's work through it together. Let's move forward together. Because if we aren't moving forward together, I can say, my fault, I'm sorry, and all these other words, but we're both going this direction. But if we say, hey, I'm in this alongside with you, that allows me to see you as, like Coach Uncle saying, now we're partners in this. Now we both take ownership to make it better, not just to own what we did.
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry. You about to say something?
Yeah, it's like, like I use around here, like, look, we in this together. You know what I mean? It's like there are going to be certain things you're going to be better at, certain things I'm going to be better at. That's okay. There are going to be certain things that's, it's always going to be some opposition or some different things we may not agree on. That's okay. But at the end of the day, we in this together. Like, we ain't nobody going nowhere. It is what it is. Like, so I think that is a good approach, and I think we use it a lot of times, and we see it all the time in sports. We see it a lot of time, like you said, in coaching. So it's like I really can see why, and the benefit of doing it like that versus the traditional method can be very beneficial. Because people, I think by nature, we going back to the primal stuff, generally want to be a part of something. So and especially at the smallest level of being a part of something is between you and the person you're with, whether that maybe that's you and your child, maybe you and your wife, or that relationship between you and that other person. That's like the smallest form of it right there of a society is like two people. So
yeah. And again, I want to stress the piece. There's an ownership from the person who is stonewalling. You have to be willing for the other person to go alongside you. So your stonewalling and rigidness and things of that nature, like we got to be consciously aware of the energy and the vibes that we're giving off in that particular moment. Because are you presenting yourself and showing yourself as being a partner in this, or are you still presenting yourself to be in opposition? So I think all of those things have to be identified. We got to scan ourselves, right? Everybody has a responsibility to scan themselves and see how they're showing up in that particular moment. Because if I can scan myself and I'm like this right here, and I'm side eyeing you as you're talking to me and things like that, I'm not trying to partner with you. I'm trying to see. I'm like Major Payne. I'm like, what's your angle? You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of like how I'm looking at you right now. Like you're trying to get the best of me right now. So we have to be in a position to where we are approachable, right? Even in our stonewalling position where we're approachable, but not just that, we got to be in a position to where we are willing to partner so that we can get through this particular thing as well. So greatly appreciate that. Yep.
And look, at the same time, you know, Gaddy he called us old folks earlier pretty much. And being old folks, like, we ain't got no whole bunch of time. You know, we ain't got to sit around here stonewalling for 2 and 3 hours or 3 and 4 days and stuff like this. Look, everybody was talking about tomorrow ain't promised to you. So then why you spending 3 and 4 hours? You gonna get over it. Y'all gonna make up anyway. Let's get on, get to it. Why are we stonewalling for 5 hours? You know what I mean? I understand it takes time, but why not let time be more important and be the motivator or the push behind you getting the help and the support you need with your stonewalling? Like Coach said, stonewalling, you got a responsibility too, because you're affecting the relationship. You're taking away time that we could be using together or that someone could be spending together. You're taking away from the relationship with your stonewalling. So anything that we are doing in a relationship that is affecting our time, we need to be working on, including stonewalling.
So I guess for me, the question has to come behind that, which is how do we teach that or tell that to a generation or to a group of people or whatever that are taught that their emotion is the most, or their feelings is the most important thing? Because this is why I stonewall for so long. This is why I'm 40 and I'm still stonewalling off of something that happened to me when I was 15. Is because my feelings is more important than the success of this relationship. In fact, my feelings are so important that to me, the success of this relationship is based upon you respecting that I'm going to stonewall you because of my feelings.
Great point. There's an old saying I will kind of put out there first to kind of answer this question. And that old saying says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You can't teach a person that's not willing to be taught. I can't go alongside a person that's not willing to partner with me. So I think first and foremost, you teach those who are looking to be taught. You teach those who want to grow beyond where they are so that they can have better relationships. And then you allow that to be your focus, not so much as trying to speak to the masses, right? But, speak to the ones that are willing to listen. Help those to understand the things that we've learned through the years of errors that we've made, and some of the things that we've learned, not just by experience, but through seeking the information and learning it and then putting that into practice and seeing the other side of it as well, because there's two parts of this thing. We can go get the information from the book, but this is not knowledge. A book is simply information. Information does me no good until I put it into practice, because then there's another learning that comes from practical example. So now once I put that into practice, I have to take what I learned from practice and apply it to what I learned from the book. And then that's the thing I'm sharing with them. Go ahead, Rob.
Man, I forgot what I was saying because you got to Gaddy's question. I think that when we find ourselves in position, the new age vernacular would be, I just cut people off. But it's not that I'm cutting people off. I'm cutting off foolishness that I'm not aligned with. And if I'm not aligned with it, it doesn't mean I'm cutting you off per se, but as long as you are lined up with that, we're not walking together. When you're ready, as you said, the teacher and the student, when you're ready to move forward, I'm here. Mm-hmm. But I'm cutting that foolishness off. It may look like I'm cutting you off because you're attached to foolishness, but I'm still here.
I like it. Yeah, did we answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like it.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Great question. All right, next we're going to dive into the resentment archaeology. And in most cases, we waste our time addressing symptoms rather than getting to the root cause of our concerns. A great example of this is infidelity. And I believe everybody may have experienced being in a relationship where infidelity has actually happened. Being unfaithful in a relationship has never been the root cause of any failed relationship. When we don't take the time to understand what the root cause is, what we do is we leave a lot of unanswered questions on the table. So the 5 layers of why is what I'm proposing today. And the 5 layers of why is a problem-solving technique used to identify the root cause of an issue by repeatedly asking why, at least 5 times. Don't do no less than 3. So this message encourages digging deeper into the problem rather than stopping at the surface level symptoms. It is designed to uncover the underlying reasons behind an issue, mistake, or inefficiency. So that said, I kind of just want to dive into the first portion of this. What societal norms inhibit the excavation of the 5 layers of why in conflict resolution, and how does this contribute to generational cycles of resentment? I ask it again to give you guys some time to think into that. What societal norms inhibit the excavation of the 5 layers of why in conflict resolution, and how does this contribute to generational cycles of resentment?
I don't know if I know exactly what the 5 layers of why are. Maybe y'all need to come back to me.
Okay. So what I just said previously is that the 5 layers of why is a problem solving technique where you keep asking why. So I ask you.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yep. Come on, somebody, anybody scream.
I think one of the societal norms would be because I said so, or when a person doesn't know something, they do the banana in the tailpipe. They shift focus from what the problem is to something else, or they start an argument, or it's I'm with. I think I heard about the 5 layers of why about car dealership, not the car dealer, Toyota or something, like a Japanese dude, Toyota, something, yeah. And they're teaching people how to communicate and how to deal with problems and whatnot. But conflict resolution you gotta say what the problem is. Some people talk about everything but the problem.
Well, I think a societal norm is, I want to say overgeneralizing.
Okay.
I got it out that time. But kind of that, and then also kind of just like having like just surface level conversations, right? That didn't require a lot of thought, or just maybe even like regurgitating other people's talking points and stuff in general. So like sometimes I go on sometimes when I get on social media,
Mhm.
I'm getting way ahead of myself because I'm thinking real hard right now. But I think I want to start with the surface level communication, right? A lot of times we don't see conflict resolution because people are still having conversations on the surface. No one is digging a little bit deeper to understand someone else's perspective or why they think the way they do, or they're not looking to have a conversation that ends with either a solution or even just to have a better understanding of someone else's perspective. So I think it's hard sometimes because the conversations are so surface level, and they're very hard sometimes when you have somebody who's surface level and then someone is like way down here or like way up here. But in general, if you're just having surface level conversations about whatever it is that two people may be going through, or whatever the conflict is, it's going to be really hard to push past anything. And that's why you see fights on television and people going back and forth on the chats on social media and stuff like that. And that's why they never really get to a resolution on anything, because a lot of the conversations are just surface layer. And then I think, how does this contribute to the general
Generational.
generational cycles of resentment? I think these things are passed down. I remember a few years ago when I was in elementary school, right? This is funny. I used to do I used to teach elementary students lessons on emotions. And what I would do is I would go through the lesson and I would talk about emotions. We would role play. We would have bring students up. They would be able to show different facial expressions, and students would be able to figure out, what emotion they were displaying. And then at the end, I would have like a little PowerPoint presentation. And in that PowerPoint presentation, I'd have maybe 15 slides of just different people. And it was funny how I would bring up the presidents, and kids would be already second grade, third grade. They had already chosen a side. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, my mama said this, and my dad said this person is this. And it was crazy. Like I said, elementary students already choosing a side already. And those kids, ain't having nothing but surface layer conversations about politics. But you have seen some of them not get upset or mad, but you heard them say, oh no, no, he ain't, so even like I said, in elementary school. So that's what I wanted to add to this conversation.
Okay. What you got, Gary?
Whew, man. When I think of this question, the more and more I sit on it, the more I think of like the parent-child relationship and societal norms, right? Because it's the concept of, not explaining stuff to your kids just because I said so. That's cool at a really young age, but the older they get, the more we need to explain and teach, give whys. Because when we tell them, just do what I say because I said it, just do it, right? And especially when we say generational cycles of resentment, what other ways do we, or what greater way do we see resentment in our community than to the previous generations? It's like we're still mad at mama for the thing we didn't get on Christmas. We still mad at daddy for the thing he said, or some of us mad at daddy because of him and mama's relationship. Like, but there's no conversation to the generations as to, hey, maybe for the sake of you to have a successful relationship, let me explain to you why ours went wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I got a caveat after.
Oh, okay, my bad. So I think on those, I think on that conversation, just dragging children through life, we get our experiences young from whatever our parents go through or put us through in their experience in adulthood. And so as I get older, I need that explained to me because I'm walking through life mad at mama about this thing, and I'm mad at daddy about this thing, and now I'm mad at everybody because I don't know who to blame. I don't know what's going on. And so now I'm stonewalling as an adult because I don't want to ever be treated how my daddy was treated or how my mama was treated or whatever. So for me, this one right here is that parent-child relationship. As they get older, let's explain things to them. Let's explain life to them.
And if I could, while they were talking, I was thinking like, man, all four of us up here and people in the chat can understand from a cultural perspective some of the things that we go through. Don't talk about what goes on in this house. You make rules and guidelines like that, which inhibit kids as they become adults, because now it's like, hey, I got all this built up, suppressed energy from things that happened, but I couldn't talk to nobody because I couldn't talk in the house. So as people who look at things a certain way, oh, we don't do that. Black people we don't do therapy, and we don't do this, and we hold ourselves back with some of the jargon that was taught to us and brought down from the elders to us, and we hold on to it as truths instead of seeing it for what it is and relinquishing it to the atmosphere and say, hey, those things got to go. Now I have to deal with the problem of what happened as well as how I allowed it to hold me back.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that the childhood thing is really one of the, it really is the beginning of it all. As children are very inquisitive, whether they have a reason to be inquisitive or not. They tend to ask why a lot. and then they'll get because I said so. Go sit down, stop talking to me right now. I'm busy. Go run there and watch TV or whatever. So as that child becomes an adult, like, moving forward and things of that nature, they stop asking why because they feel like they're going to get in trouble. Well, then they become older, and then, they don't necessarily ask the appropriate questions in certain situations. I gave the example of infidelity previously, and I think what we've done, we've made it systemic to ask why about the wrong thing. We'll ask why about the act and not necessarily considering the why as it pertains to the person, not the person that was selected, but the person that you're in relationship with. Like, why within the scope of this relationship, why was that the outlet? Why was that the thing? Maybe it's something that can be discovered within the space of conversation to where that person was missing in this relationship. Not necessarily saying the act is justified, but it helps you to understand where there are gaps in your relationship to where you can actually mend it and come closer together. And that person was just using that particular act as an outlet. And I greatly appreciate what everybody's putting in the chat because you guys are all over it. Look, I want to hit one more thing before I go into that video. And that one more thing I want to dive into first is called the vulnerability paradox. Now, under the vulnerability paradox, I want to introduce a thing called the vulnerability index. Vulnerability index is an innovative framework introduced to, how can I say it? It's introduced to quantify or normalize emotional transparency in relationships. It transforms vulnerability from an abstract concept to a measurable, actionable practice. And it kind of breaks down like this. You kind of have like a scoring system that rates it from 1 to 10 based upon the degree of openness or risk taken during an emotionally challenging conversation. Framing vulnerability as a score decreases shame and turns emotional risk-taking into a collaborative challenge. Assigning numbers compels participants to confront avoidance. A 5 is celebrated as progress rather than judged as inadequate. So it's simple, like before a tough conversation, partners or colleagues agree to rate their vulnerability on a shared scale. In this example, like 1 to 10, how risky does it feel to share this? During the dialogue, participants periodically check in. So I'm at a vulnerability level of 7 right now. This feels shaky, but worth it. Post-discussion, both parties reflect. We hit an 8 during the apology. What helped us get there? And so that said, I kind of want to go back. And for those people who did not get the opportunity to look at the video was a snippet of the TV series The Suit. And so it's that episode where Harvey, he ended up dating his therapist at a later point in time. He waited till the appropriate time to where they can be in a relationship. But the therapist understood the relationship between he and Donna. And for those who don't know, Donna was like his secretary for a very long time. They have chemistry together, I'll say it that way. So one night, Harvey came home, and this was after Donna attempted to kiss him. So he came home that night, and he asked her to move in with him. Not Donna, but the girlfriend, Paula. He asked Paula to move in with him, and then just, continued that night as though nothing happened. Well, over time, he started to feel a little guilty. And so maybe like 2 nights later, he came home, and he said, Paula, I got to tell you something. And so she was like, well, what is it? And then he said, Donna kissed me, right? And so at that point, of course, within the questions, when did this happen? How did it happen? Whatever. He said, I didn't do it. She kissed me. And so then she got to the point of like focusing on the other night when he came home and never shared it with her that night. So I kind of want to ask the question in relation to the scenario. And trust me, I didn't explain it as well as the video portray it, but it is what it is. So I kind of want to ask a question within the scope of that. When it comes down to, I don't know, all of these things we talked about, emotional walls, 3-word code breaker, resentment archaeology, and vulnerability paradox. What went wrong in that conversation, and what opportunities presented itself to happen? I'm just kind of curious of your feedback. What went wrong during that conversation, and what opportunities presented itself to happen?
I think what went wrong was the shift of focus on how I feel betrayed. That went wrong. So now, if I focus on how I feel about me being betrayed in our situation, I don't focus on what made her comfortable enough to do this. And I'm not looking at what happened. I'm not looking at, man, you trusted me enough to give me this information. So now what I'm doing is I'm stumping on it, stumping on information instead of saying, man, he trusted me with the information. So what is it about him that one felt the need to tell me? Because I see that there's a level of trust that has to be, and he wants this to work. At least that's how it seems. So I think that's shown, from how I see it so far.
Yeah. As they're answering, I want you guys to answer in the chat as well. I want to hear that.
I don't know. I feel like the conversation went wrong because she was a therapist and she was a critical thinker. Here's why I say that. Because I don't know everybody else's take on the conversation. I see you shaking your head, Ro. That's all right. You can disagree, but I'm still right. Because here's why I say that. Because the moment she asked, when did this happen, I knew that it was going downhill from there, because my next question that came to my head was, well, if you waited 2 days, why are you telling me now? Why is it weighing on you that you had to come back and tell me? If it was something that you could have just got over, you should have just got over it. But you're not over it, and you're thinking about it because you had to come home 2 days later and pour your heart out about it to me. And so that brought about concern that, oh, there is chemistry on your end towards her as well. She may have initiated the kiss, but you thought about that kiss for 2 days, so much that it made you feel guilty enough to come home and tell me. And then, which makes me go back and question, well, then why did you come home that night and ask me to move in the night she kissed you? It's too much it's too much wrong with that alone right there. So that's why I looked at it and I was like, I think the conversation went wrong with he was messing with a psychiatrist. She wasn't stupid, That's my take.
I never seen the show, but based off of what you were saying, I think the same thing. I know you guys had a visualization of what went on, but to the person, they wasn't there, right? So they don't know what happened that day, but they automatically went on the defensive, right? Instead of saying like what Roland's saying is, hey, look, this person is telling me something that they didn't have to tell me. Or maybe they did. It all depends on the dynamics of your relationship. But maybe every time someone attempts to kiss someone, I don't think that it's always initiated. I think that there are some people out there who are just hyper aggressive and may just decide to shoot their shot, even though there may not have been anything there, or they may have misread a certain signal, right? And then that person may just go for it, and then only to realize that the person wasn't thinking that altogether. So I don't think that it's always initiated. And then I also think that even going forward after that, maybe that person thought that it wasn't a big deal. It's like, well, I didn't want it. They did it. I've got rid of the problem. The person's not going to do it again. I had a conversation. So, and let me just go on and move on with my life. And then a couple of days later, maybe something came up and then was like, hey, look, hey, what happened a couple of days ago, blah, blah, blah. I just want to let you know, because obviously in what I think, that if someone is coming and sharing something like that with you, they probably are comfortable and probably don't feel like they have anything to hide, and they feel like that they can be open and honest in the relationship, even when it comes to things like that. So yeah, I think that's where the conversation went wrong way back then.
Yeah, yeah.
He never
I'm,
seen the show. He never seen the
Never
show.
no,
seen
I
the
know.
show.
no, I got it. I got it. That's why I tried to explain it in the beginning, because I can't really play it on here, because if I play it on here, then I'm gonna get flagged. And that's why I tried to put the link in the chat in the beginning so everybody could see the clip. I think twofold. There's a lot of assumptions that can be made in this situation. Like, Sis Nodell, I love you, but you say he lied. He never lied. She never asked the question that he had to lie about. He just did not share. Now I got it. Lie is the contortion of the truth or the omission of the truth. But at the end of the day, in theory, he never really lied, because they never was talking about Donna that night he came home. I will also say, when you look at it, he really wanted that relationship to work. So he started to shun Donna to a certain degree, like keep her at bay, because he knew that she felt some type of way about their connection at work. They were, now, to get his point, there was a lot of insecurities that she had. And if you go and look at it, she was very insecure. Now, this is the therapist we're talking about. She had a lot of insecurity within her as it pertains to their relationship. So the therapist needed the therapy. The therapist needed therapy. I'm just going to be honest with you. And in most cases, that's really how it works. I keep saying that there's only two groups of people: those people who need therapy and those people who lie to themselves and say they don't. Even in that, when he approached her saying, I have something to tell her, it was like she took what he said and made the important part of the conversation about him not telling her the night that it happened. And in my opinion, I got it. That's a thing to do, but why not appreciate the fact that he is telling you, regardless of when it happens? And so that's kind of like what we're talking about. I want to kind of like bring a real world, not a real world, kind of like a scenario to the forefront, because I think a lot of time that's what we do. We focus on the aspect of the conversation that we want to have, as opposed to appreciating the conversation that's actually happening in real time. If he didn't tell her, I'm going to do what the poor man Dr. Phil said previously. If he never told her, she would have never known. So now there should be a way of staying in that conversation, listening to that conversation, and let's talk about there. Why not ask, what makes this so important that you tell me now? I think Son of Timothy mentioned that. What makes this so important that you're sharing this with me now? Right? Because now that gets into the potential vulnerability that is available in the midst of that conversation. And if we stay there and nurture that for a little while longer, I think you might be surprised at the outcome of the conversation. Let's just be honest. Can we be real for a second? We wired for messy. I'm just going, let's be honest. Be real with yourself. Look at the chats. I love all y'all. Look at the chats. We wired for messy. That's all it is. He lied. No. Let's not automatically jump over there. Let's stay here. And I got to put that voice on when I say that. The Sister Nodella know this isn't directed at her when I'm saying this, right? Let's stay in the conversation, because we got to understand, making an assumption and trying to put the pieces together in your head, as opposed to having the conversation that's available at hand, is one of the biggest mistakes we make in communication. Therefore, the communication efforts is no more, it's not even effective anymore. And so one of the things that Harvey found himself saying, and he's like, that's not fair. You're punishing me for something she did. So he was telling her right now in that particular moment that you're focused on one thing in particular. And then she like, no, it's not about what Donna did. It's about you not telling me the other night. I'm telling you now. Like, what's the problem? So anyway, I'm being a little messy with it, but I think that's just real.
Especially when you had no control over it. Like, he had according to what you guys say, he had no control over the kiss. Like,
I think they had some sort of. If you watch it, you see they have chemistry, and she took it to a different level. But I think what his girlfriend Donna should have done was she should have explored with him. Say, hey, is that something that you want to pursue? Like you came to me with it, but talk to him now. You can't sit up there and feel, oh, he just shot me with a dart. No, you got to say, okay, You're telling me about it. Is it something you want to pursue? So now we can see where we need to go, what we need to talk about, whether we can just be friends or you can go pursue her.
I mean, let's just be 100. I'm just being 100, right? First of all, Crystal, you're right. She said, first of all, we're talking Harvey. That's just messy of itself. 2, if you can call me insecure, whatever you want to call me, but if I'm dating a girl and we getting serious and I go up to her job and I meet Harvey, not Harvey the physical appearance, but that relationship they have, oh, I'm definitely, if I wasn't insecure when I walked up there, I'm insecure now because
you started insecure then.
Well, whatever you say, but
there's a piece of information that we're leaving out. Remember, she was his therapist, so she knows his story.
Yeah,
his story has to do with his parents. So again, we can say we talking about Harvey, but Harvey's human just like everybody else. And I don't care what you look like and how much money you make, you still got some stuff that you're trying to overcome. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say what I say. I get all of that. And again, we focus on the fact that, oh, well, he didn't tell me until 2 nights later. But again, why not focus on the fact that he told you? That's a step forward to who Harvey is. Because be real, the old Harvey would be like, nah, we ain't gonna talk about it. Because Harvey has, like we said last week, Harvey's a control freak. But he controlled everything.
But I agree. I agree with let's not talk about him. Like me personally, because nothing's gonna. If I know nothing's gonna happen, I'm not gonna allow that to happen. That's my subordinate. That's my. Now we know she ain't nobody subordinate the way she walks around that law firm. But that's my secretary for what 16, 17 years, whatever, 20 years, however long they were working together since he was a district attorney, So that relationship is heavy. Y'all close enough to where you can set that boundary. Hey, this not going to happen again, about whatever the case may be. So for me, why bring it up? Because the moment you bring it up, it's an issue. Because now it's where you can't work with her no more. With most women you date with, you go home and tell Olympia that some girl you work with every day tried to kiss you. She better quit tomorrow.
But you walk around in somebody else's boundaries like that. I'm not walking around being in prison from somebody else. Like, oh, you can't go here, you can't do this.
But did your coworker not cross your boundary too by kissing you while you were in a relationship?
Understood. Now that relationship has to change.
We said Harvey, right?
Yes.
Okay, we just want to make sure.
Yeah, that relationship has to change, but she can't put Harvey in the prison of her insecurities.
Facts.
That he brought it to. I'm talking to you about it.
But you can create insecurities in people by treating them certain ways, by doing things.
He didn't treat her any type of way.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Say that again.
I believe, and go on, fight me. I believe you can create some of these insecurities. Yeah, because I can go insecure, but that relationship that they have can make a person insecure about that relationship.
It can expose insecurity.
However you say it. But you can go in insecure with your woman and see her quote unquote, like they say nowadays, work husband. Work what? Wait. Work husband. And that dynamic, that relationship is going to make you start thinking after a while, like, hey, this ain't just no work relationship. I hear you. But.
I mean, I don't. Okay, I got what you're saying. I don't think anybody can create something in me that's not already there.
Right.
I'm kind of like we're rolling on this one. Like it will explode. Like case in point, it got to the point where she told Harvey that they can't work together no more. Do you realize what the potentiality of what that is going to look like? Mm-hmm. Harvey is going to have to let her go, which he kind of mentioned. And now what could possibly happen on the other side of that? You see what I'm saying? For what cause, all this.
Did you get out that season yet?
Nope, he ain't there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I understand what you're going at, but I'm talking about in that particular moment. I ain't talking about what's happening later. I'm talking about in that particular moment. Like what? Think about it. He is her employer. And then this happens, knowing they have history now. This happens, and now she and his girlfriend in her feelings and say, y'all can't work together no more if this gonna work. So now he has to fire her because she insecure. Like I said, all we had to do, huh?
She kissed him.
Reprimand.
And she has a better relationship with her. But yeah.
Yeah.
Reprimand. That's enough. What you got? You said they're smiling.
He want to go watch the show now. Look,
You see what Shell just put in the chat?
I saw.
Oh,
She said, "What show is this?" And then she put the eyes up there.
Yeah,
Y'all got her interested.
I'm telling you, man, you can watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, I disagree with Gaddy. I don't think that anybody else can cause anybody else's insecurities. I do think that there are ways that you should behave while you are at work. There's a certain level of professionalism. I don't know the relationship between Harvey and them. You know, when you say they had history, so you mean they had like history or they had like history?
I think the story kind of lures to something almost happened, but didn't.
No, it did.
It did.
It did.
It was a one night thing. Yeah.
I also do agree and believe that relationships can change too. I do believe that there are certain relationships that can evolve and may start one way and may change and be something totally different. You know, so especially with a certain level of maturity, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, if I've been had a secretary for 18 years, that's a long time. That's a lot of information. That is a lot of cohesion. That is a lot of, you know, especially, I don't know, did he run like a big business or something like that?
He was the owner of a law firm. He was the managing partner of a law firm. Because Jessica had already left.
The secretary is part of the brains of the operation. It's
right. And she knew it, and the girlfriend knew what she was getting into when they got into a relationship.
Hey, well, it's a self-inflicted wound. You know what I mean?
A girlfriend. You ain't got too much say. You don't.
I ain't gonna go that far because Harvey really liked her.
He liked her,
right? But I'm still stuck on the space of the conversation at hand, right? There was a golden opportunity missed in that conversation because if she just stayed there where he was and appreciate the fact that he shared the information with her, like first and foremost, instead of focusing on what didn't happen, why not focus on what did happen? Then focus on the fact that this happened, this must mean this, right? So if you stay there, and again, kind of going back to what we're talking about, right? If you stay there and you start having conversation with him and you start focusing on the why, not the why did she kiss you? That's the wrong side of the conversation because you're talking about her behavior. Why are you telling me now? You know what I'm saying? Ask because he made a statement like it was some cheesy statement. It was kind of funny though. Like you make time stop or something like that. I'm making this up. And so if she just like, well, why? And then he'll say this, well, why? And then he'll say whatever. Okay, well, why? Like you just keep asking why until he gets to the point to where he is figuratively stripped. And there's no facade. There's no Harvey. It's just the person that's in front of you. So you go down the why aspect of it. And if he gets emotional, that's fine. Right. And then you do the 3-word code breaker and go along with them in that, go alongside them, if you will, in that miss. And then, start talking vulnerability index. Like, where are you at in this conversation on the scale of 1 to 10? Like, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of times in these conversations, we miss golden opportunities that are staring us in the face. But a lot of times, because of our past experiences, we want to go over here, but the conversation is right here. Stay right here in this conversation. Have this conversation at the level in which this conversation presents itself and see what comes on the backside of it. Your thoughts? Uncle, like, yeah, right. I ain't doing that.
No, I'm good. I wish I saw the video, man. Shame on me.
See, y'all was supposed to see the video backstage, but y'all was doing some other stuff.
You're trying
Say
to get
less.
ready.
I think that takes a mature person, a person that knows themselves, a person that's secure in themselves, to not feel obligated to bring in my feelings when you're being open and honest about something that you're going through. Because once you put it on my feelings, well, I'm feeling a certain way, or you hurt my feelings because you did this, which I did nothing. She kissed me. I think you got to look at it and say, okay, I'm telling you so that we can discuss it, so that we can move. You can partner with me in this thing and we can move forward. Not so you can sit up there and browbeat me to death. He can't say that. Browbeat me to a point to where I'm embarrassed about even coming to you, because it teaches me that I can't come to you about everything.
And to your point, I want to kind of just say one piece in relation to that. I think only mature people should be in relationships. If you're still dealing with insecurities and you still got some unresolved traumas in your life, you shouldn't be tying your life to anybody else and making them subject to the lack of work that you did on yourself.
I agree with that. But I don't know. I'm not telling you. I'm handling it at work. Reprimand everything you said. I'm not, because I don't see no good. I see no good coming behind bringing it home. Because even if you come up to the job to bring me something, you're gonna look at her a sort of way, because even if we dealt with it or whatever, you still know that she had something there enough and saw me in a way that she went out of her way to kiss me. So for me, I didn't. And I'm just looking at it from my viewpoint, my vantage point. I don't see a positive out of bringing that situation up if I'm going to handle it.
Well, it ain't coming home no more. That's for sure.
That's the lesson.
Right.
Fool me once.
Yeah. That's the
Look,
lesson.
if I tell you about something that went on at work and it get flipped around and stuff, I'm not telling you nothing else.
Yeah.
Because it got flipped around. Like I brought something to your attention so we could work through it, or even just so you'd know about it, to let you know, hey, look, everything cool over here. I'm just letting you know, sharing something that happened with you at work, just sharing it with you. I ain't have nothing to do with it. It was something that was 100% out of my control. Then it get flipped around. Don't worry about me saying anything else about it, anything else that goes on at the school.
See, and I got caught up in something like that before, where when I was 21 and married to my first wife, she asked me about a young lady. You think she cute? I said, yeah. Thinking, oh, we cool, we could talk. I said, yeah, she cute. Nothing behind it. Next thing I know, I'm hearing, I want this woman and all this. I'm like, where'd that come from? Like, hold up. You asked me a question. I'm being honest with you. Now you teach me. Be like you say all men are.
Yeah, the setup was real, bro. She threw herself a fastball. But I'm agreeing, because that's the other side to it, which what the Unc just said. If we miss this golden opportunity of this conversation right here, and then we get into the spat because you're focused on the fact that I didn't tell you 2 nights ago. Well, the lesson from that is that, well, if it happens at work, keep it at work. Because now you're telling me that I can't bring things home to you and be honest and transparent with you, and you appreciate the level of transparency that I'm trying to bring to this relationship. That's the other side of it. And so I think that's a very dangerous game to play. Speaking of play, I greatly appreciate you guys playing along with me. For you guys who missed it and didn't look at the video, that clip that I put in the chat, shame on you. Y'all got to get here on time, because there's no telling what I'm going to do. One night we're going to play Jeopardy. I promise you it's going to happen. Listen real quick, because we kept you guys a little long. I kind of want these gentlemen to kind of give their final thoughts real quick. We're going to start with son of Timothy, poor man's Dr. Phil, Unc, and then with myself. And I'm going to ask these gentlemen to keep their sermon real short as we get ready to dive into it. So that being said, son of Timothy, you got the floor.
Man, I really want to finish where Coach kind of said a couple of minutes ago, which is mature people should be the ones getting into relationship, right? Um, everybody believes at the time that their relationships ended that they were in the right, what have you. I get it, but a lot of us could have handled a lot of things better, and not just in our marriages or in our girlfriend boyfriend relationships, but even in relationships with our siblings, with friends that we've lost because we mishandled situations properly. And so, only thing I'm really with is let's do the work. There's a lot of opportunities for us to build better relationships in the future, and even with people that are right here, right? And then not be superficial, and we have real connections. So let's do the work. Let's work on ourselves. Let's be open to hear. Every time we have one of these conversations, I handle it the same way I handle scripture when I read a scripture that I haven't read in a while. I haven't read before. I've read it 1,000 times, and the very next question after I read it is, where am I at in this? Am I walking in alignment, or am I the person that he's talking about that's doing wrong, or where am I at? And wherever I'm at, how do I continue to move forward and get better? And so we we can change lives with relationships. We can change generations with them seeing good relationships and good networking and communication. So let's strive for better.
The wall between us, how to break through emotional barriers and rebuild connection. I think when it comes to partnership, when it comes to friendship, partnership, and anyone that you're in a relationship with, the focus shouldn't always be the good. The focus shouldn't always be the bad. The focus should be the relationship and getting to know the actual person. So if that's getting to know the you without the glasses, without the shirt, without the sew in and the false teeth, the eyelashes, and everything. I want to get to know you and you get to know me. So there's no sugarcoating everything. If we're truly in this thing, we got to get to know one another. That way, I know if I do this, it hurts you. And then I get to know the why. So now we can work through that. So we can work through our triggers, work through our all those things that we have built up, that we built up on our own, that we built up in other relationships, that we had family issues. We need to tear those walls down together so that we can move forward together.
When we have relationships, and there's walls that divide us, a lot of times I believe that those walls are made a lot of the brick and mortar, or emotions and feelings, and emotions and feelings, over time create barriers and create walls. I don't think in most cases those walls in relationships start are just built at one incident. I think a lot of times they are built brick by brick, emotion after emotion, feeling after feeling. And then over time there's this wall that has been built. And the good thing about it is you can help you can knock the wall down. There are things that you can do in your relationship to work together in order to help break down some of those walls. So if you are in a relationship and there are some walls that are built up, I encourage you tonight to do a self-assessment. Maybe talk to your partner, whoever you with, and maybe y'all do something together and say, hey, just spend some time together, spend some time self-assessing yourself, or with someone that you may have a relationship that may have a strain or that may have a wall up, and then start figuring out a plan to address it and possibly knock down some of those walls. So that's my final thought for this evening.
I greatly appreciate everybody's point in this conversation. All points that were made tonight, I think, were really good. I really do believe that when we are completely honest with ourselves, a lot of times we get into relationships and we're not necessarily ready to be in the relationship that we're in. Um, and it reveals some things about us to ourselves that a lot of times we're not necessarily ready to deal with. We're not transparent enough to deal with. We're not honest enough with ourselves in the midst of dealing with it. Make no mistake about it. Your perspective is your perspective. It is your perspective of reality, but it does not mean that your perspective is 100% reality. There's more than one way to look at a particular thing. So we have to get to the point of recognizing that when I see a thing a particular type of way, the way that I feel about it, it could be right according to my perspective, but that's what drives the way that I feel about it. But when I take it and I throw it at somebody else, now I'm in error because I didn't do the work behind the information that my feelings are sharing with me in that moment. Remember, like we said, your emotions are like they're like firewalls as it pertains to your reality. And I think when we recognize that piece, then it requires us to analyze the information that we're dealing with. Again, a lot of immature people getting into relationships and they're damaging the relationship environment, and then they're just recycling from relationship to relationship to relationship, and unfortunately they're blaming every person that they're in relationship for the relationship failing and not necessarily looking in the mirror. So again, my challenge, everybody, regardless of whether we're talking a friendship, whether we're talking intimate relationship, whether we're talking a sibling bond, like analyze yourself, do the work on yourself. Don't be like Paula and focus on the wrong part of a conversation that's actually being had in the moment. Focus on the aspect of the conversation that's being presented to you and listen attentively and try to implement some of these strategies that we talked about during this conversation. So, again, great conversation again, gentlemen. Any last words that you guys want to put out? No. Poor man, Dr. Phil say he good. Uncle say he good. Gaddy is falling asleep. Okay, yeah, David, appreciate that. Hey, listen, pay attention in the chat. Crystal does a great job by putting all of the information in there. Again, Sunday brunch coming up at 11:30 on Sunday, hosted by it is the Voice of Reason this Sunday. As always, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Me and Unc on Coach's Corner, another live event. So make sure that you're there. And then, as always, every Friday night. At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here, we have another episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. So that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic weekend. And for those of you who can join us on Sunday's brunch, we will see you then. If not, we'll see you on Coach's Corner, or if not, we'll see you next Friday right here on the Hearts of Men podcast. So that being said, you guys be awesome, be blessed, and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.